they didn't understand what we were saying because we couldn't understand them. But here we were discussing this kid, like, hey, his behavior's not normal, and then all of a sudden, his father speaks not just English, but fluent, articulate English. Not a safe assumption to make. So yeah, we really could have used the benefit of some decent training in language and culture. We did long patrols along the Syrian border. I mentioned that in the story that I read. Trying to interdict smuggling. We were trying to stop, that was the whole point of First Light Armored Reconnaissance's mission in Al-Qaim. Al-Qaim is a border town. So money and weapons are, go in and out of Iraq through that area. And Al-Qaim has a long history of smuggling. It's part of how Al-Qaim thrives, is through its smuggling trade. Long before the invasion, long before we were there, smuggling has been going on in Al-Qaim for centuries. So we were trying to interdict smuggling. In the 8 months that First Light Armored Reconnaissance was present at Al-Qaim, we interdicted successfully 1 case of smuggling. We caught an Iraqi shepherd trying to sneak sheep across the border into Syria to get a better market price for them. Sheep. That's it. It's the only successful case of interdicting smuggling on the part of First Light Armored Reconnaissance. We would patrol the border, our single company of Marines, weapons company of First Light Armored Reconnaissance. From Al-Qaim to the 50 Northern, probably about a 25, 30-mile stretch of the border. Company of Marines is about 200, 250 strong. 250 Marines, about 20 vehicles, control 25 miles of the border. It was pointless. It was a complete waste of time. The fact that we were asked to do that, to risk our lives, and people did die while we were doing this. People were injured while we were doing this. People's lives were ruined while we were doing this. For no reason. It was utterly pointless. So I came back. I came back from Iraq, and I experienced what my friend Jason Lemieux referred to as cognitive dissonance. This sense that the worldview that I had had prior to deploying to Iraq no longer matched the experiences I was having. Right? I grew up in a family. My father was what I'd refer to as a military fetishist. He was fascinated by the things of the military, the tanks, the planes. I grew up going to air shows. Right? Very our country, right or wrong mindset. I remember during the military adventures in the 1980s, things like Lebanon, the bombings of Libya. My father saying things about how the people we were doing this against deserved it, right? And believing that. I grew up believing it. I grew up very patriotic, very idealistic. Didn't ask a lot of questions about the things I was taught, just accepted them as they had been taught to me. And Iraq changed that. Iraq changed that because I went over there as liberator, right? I'm going to go in as a hero. I'm going to provide freedom and democracy and all of the things that I enjoy here at home to a foreign people. And instead, I spent my time in Iraq imposing martial law on people. Now, our motivation for doing this was survival. Our motivation for doing this was trying to stay alive. We were treating the people this way because we felt we were threatened. We were in danger. But if we were in danger, if we're only going over there to stay alive, then what's the point? Right? Does that make sense? Why did we go all the way around the world if we're not going to struggle to bring these people actual democracy? If our only point is going over there to try and stay alive, I think the best way to stay alive would be just to not do it in the first place, right? So yeah, I came home with that sense of cognitive dissonance, with not really believing in what I believed prior to going there, and trying to sort it all out. And that's when I got into IDW. And like I said, we all started sharing information. We all started talking to each other about our experiences, about the things we'd seen over there, about the books that we were reading on military theory. Now the point on military theory is interesting, because a lot of the people who spoke out against the invasion of Iraq spoke out. They're not the people that you would expect to speak out against the war. There were a lot of very politically conservative people saying it was a bad idea. There were a lot of former military officers saying, wait a second, what are you doing? We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't get involved here. Our military is not trained to fight this kind of war. Our military is not equipped to fight this kind of war. There's an article in the Armed Forces Journal from 2007 written by Lieutenant Colonel Paul Yingling. He's a deputy commander, or he was deputy commander of the 3rd Armored Cavalry. And it's called The Failure of Generalship. And what it talks about is our General Officer Corps can be credited with physical courage. They're willing to go into Iraq where, like I said, combat is a 360-degree affair. Right? You're never in a rear area. You're never in a safe zone. So even the generals are exposed. They have that physical courage. What they lack was the moral courage to do things like risk their promotion, risk their career, on saying, our military is not trained or equipped to fight this way. If you send us over there, we're going to fail. Because the theory behind this was understood before we went there. They knew we couldn't succeed. They knew that we wouldn't have what it took to win the kind of victories that we were told we were going to get by going into Iraq. And they didn't say a word. By and large, there are a few exceptions. Anybody remember General Shinseki saying it would take half a million soldiers on the ground and a long-term commitment, years and years, and a different way of fighting? Anyone remember that? Anyone remember what happened to Shinseki?
He got pretty much demoted or lost his job.
Yeah.
Got rid of him.
That's right. He's gone.
He's the head of the VA now, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You take a risk. There's a quote I like by a biographer of one of my favorite military theorists, a man named Colonel Boyd, that says that the annals of military history are littered with the truncated careers of men who speak their voice, who speak for reform. And I think that's particularly true in this case. Our way of fighting wars, that second-generation war model, is outdated. The last time that style of fighting was effective, was truly effective in competing against another military. Anyone want to take a guess? Anyone here familiar with World War I? The end of World War I. We were still fighting that way by World War II. But the last time that it was really effective in terms of another military being willing to fight us that way was World War I. World War I, right? We're still fighting this way with ideas that were obsolete in World War I. By the Second World War, you have Guderian develops the idea of blitzkrieg, right? Where the emphasis is on the mental level, confusing your opponent, right? Breaking through his lines. You don't stop and fight him in mass. You don't want to take high casualties. The point isn't strict focus on destroying enemy personnel and property. It's on confusion, right? Mao develops popular warfare, where the whole emphasis is on the moral level, on affecting people's will to fight. There's a book about the Mujahideen in Afghanistan called The Other Side of the Mountain. It's Marine generals interviewing former Mujahideen fighters. And they talk about how they didn't expect to win. These people who were fighting the Soviets, they didn't think they were going to win that fight. And they fought anyway, because they believed it was the right thing to do, the morally correct thing to do. Their motivation wasn't